Welcome everybody. Welcome back to another session of Obsidian Office Hours. I'm excited that we're starting to get a little bit of a cadence here as far as the rhythm goes. It looks like, tentatively speaking, that we'll be doing the streams on Wednesday for Obsidian Office Hours. But again, I'll make sure to post as far as like once the schedule is actually up, one that I know that you can rely on and that kind of stuff. And so I'm excited to kind of get that ball rolling. But in the meantime, what do we got for today? So for those, if you're first time watching Obsidian Office Hours, basically we're here to hang out, talk about Obsidian, and if you have any questions about things you're trying to do within Obsidian or any sort of topics, this is kind of the space for you. And so whether you're submitting questions online via the comment sections in YouTube, or you're coming on live here on Twitch to kind of ask questions, basically we're here to just hang out, figure those things out, and more importantly, if I can't figure out those answers, I will go do the research and then bring that on as another topic in another session. So in the meantime, while we wait for questions and that kind of stuff, I usually kind of bring in a topic as well for every Obsidian Office Hour, so it's not just me sitting here quietly for the hour, which could be useful in another situation, but given the kind of structure of this particular session, I want to just have a topic that we cover about each time. So with that said, what are we talking about today? Today, I want to talk about the whole concept of dashboards, which is, in the realm of note-taking, actually a pretty useful concept because a lot of times you want to be able to organize your thoughts in a certain way. And so I figured let's just talk about that, kind of how I've been doing dashboards at the moment. And then, of course, would love to hear from you in the comments and for anyone that's here live on how you do it. And we kind of go from there. So with that said, let's jump on over into our session. So first thing first, let's talk about dashboards. So the whole purpose of dashboards is the idea that we can collect things together and see things kind of at a higher view, right? Because we can talk about different things within our notes, we can take different notes, but how do we actually get a high-level overview of what's going on? So an example of this is with when I'm taking notes for like the different sessions that we have for Obsidian Office Hours. Currently, if we go inside of my Obsidian Office Hours series, or a series like this, you'll see that I kind of have, well, what you're actually seeing here is an old version. And by old, I mean this is actually what I'm currently using, but it needs to be updated. So hence kind of the inspiration for this particular session and a topic because one, I kind of need to clean this up and I figured we would talk through it as I went through it. So first thing first, you'll notice that the note template's a little bit outdated because we have a repeat of title on top and bottom. Anyways, let me wipe that out. So the whole purpose of the dashboard you'll see here is that it's supposed to make it easy for me to understand how all my notes are connected. Now granted, on the right-hand side, or well, if this is how yours happens to be updated, if you see on any of your toolbars, whether it's the left or the right-hand side, sometimes you'll find them up here as well. There is this sort of linked mentions here that allow you to basically see all the backlinks and everything that's related in terms of this particular note. So you can see everything that's connected here, which is nice. And then another way we can certainly take a look at this too is with the local graph. So you can see this is the local graph for everything that is connected to my Obsidian Office Hours series. And while this is good for like visualization and sometimes we want to play with the data at a more abstract level, sometimes all you need is just a straightforward list of what's going on. And more importantly, you might have specific views that you want to save. Because one of the downsides of like the local graph, for example, is that everything's kind of free-flowing, which in its own right is super useful for just ideating and letting sort of ideas kind of organically come up as you're thinking of things and looking to color different things. So if we group this, let me zoom in a little bit. There we go, new group. And then let me just do type content like this. There we go. You can see here all of the content that is related to it is naturally being, like you see the relationship to the origin right here, which is super cool. And then we could even go to something as simple as everything that's published, for example. So this is a tag that I have. Let's see, status published. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it's, yes, okay, so it is being overridden by the top one. So whatever it wants, like that. There we go. Okay, so now we can differentiate between stuff that's actually been published versus just the stuff that's tagged content. So this is useful when we want the ability to kind of visually instantly tell like how things are kind of being grouped at a larger level. So in terms of like basically using the graphical side of our brain to be like, okay, this is like the feel and the vibe, and more importantly, you can publish these little pretty graphs to be like, oh, this is kind of what it looks like for how my notes are connected. Super cool for that. Then there are the times where you simply need to know like how many episodes have I had and all that stuff. And this is where I think dashboards can be super useful. So knowing that, as you can see here, what I have here is a list of every single Obsidian Office Hour that I've created up until this point. And so when thinking about dashboards, I think the most important thing to ask yourself is what information do you need and for what reason? And so if we wanted, for example, in this case, this is just an archive of every single Obsidian office hour that does exist. And so the key plugin here that's making all of that possible here is the Obsidian Dataview plugin. So let me go ahead and actually give that a shout out here. Let me do a settings. Actually, I want the docs for it. Dataview. There we go. Bum bum bum. Okay. So I want to open this up so that it's very obvious. So here we go. So this is the Dataview plugin. I'll make sure to drop this inside of the show notes. So let me do that real quick. Boom. Down here inside of resources, we'll add that later. What does Dataview allow us to do? So for those who haven't used Dataview before, it's a community plugin, I think one of the most popular ones, that basically allows you to query your notes and then display them in a pretty easy to understand format as far as how it's working. Now, this particular session, we're not doing like Dataview deep dive or anything. We're here to talk about dashboards, but I want you to know this is kind of how I'm facilitating a lot of the dashboards, because Dataview just makes it really easy to query that, and then more importantly, to make sure that things are grouped according to the way you want it to go. So, knowing that, currently my Obsidian Office Hours dashboard needs a little bit of love, so we're going to kind of take a look and think about how we want to lay this out. At the moment, you'll see here that what we're doing inside of here is we have this Dataview code block, and then more importantly, what we're querying here. So at this point, let's just keep it as simple as a list right now. I think this is probably the simplest one. And you can see here that we've gone through and we can see every single thing about this and every single episode. What's kind of interesting, though, is that I have the Obsidian Digital Garden plugin here, but as far as I'm aware, this is just something that I have an idea for. And so, that's why, because currently it's inside a backlog. So let's actually exclude that as an idea. And then, there we go, perfect. Now we have what we need. Okay, so a couple of things here when we're looking at this. One, you can see that we have the ability to query anything that, basically I'm tagging all my notes with type content, because this is the type of note that I'm looking for. But then I'm looking for specific things that are being linked. And so in this simple example of a data view, I'm basically saying look for any notes that are tagged type content that happen to have the link of Obsidian Office Hours, templates and status, and then ignore anything that have a status of idea on it. So basically these are kind of like the ones that are actively in the queue is the way I'm thinking about it. Now the thing about this though is that it's a little misleading, because right now if we go ahead and create a new note, right, and I call it my favorite Obsidian, let's say like office hour episodes, for example, right? So I create this is going to be a content, like let's say it's going to be a blog post I'm going to create. So great, this is a type content. And I'm like, oh, I really love these episodes from Obsidian Office Hours. Just like that. Whoop. Oh, it didn't actually query. Oh, it didn't query the series. There you go. Now I wanted the series. OK. By simply labeling it here, including the link, having this tag, what we should notice here, if we scroll up, is, sure enough, you'll notice that another node that has those same properties is showing up. But this is not quite what we're looking for, right? Because again, we're looking for a very specific segment of data, which is all the different sessions of Obsidian Office Hours that I've done. And so in this particular case, then, what we want to do is we want to be able to get more specific. So as we're looking at the new properties that has come out with Obsidian. Okay, so in case you don't know, if you haven't had a chance to take a look, we had an actual Obsidian Office Hours where we took a first look at Obsidian properties. And so I kind of go into depth on that. But basically what we now have is a much easier way of managing our front matter. So if I switch over into live source mode, you'll see here, this is like front matter in its raw form. And with the latest updates with Obsidian, you'll see that we have basically a pretty graphical user interface, or also known as GUI, in order to manage the different properties with the file. Now, if we go ahead and actually take, even at this existing episode, you'll see that this is still kind of a remnant of a pattern that I was using prior to this update, which was that I had this back piece in the end of my notes called additional metadata. And I was basically creating properties that I found kind of tricky or impossible to do in front matter because I couldn't link to things and whatnot. And so you'll see here, though, that all this stuff sitting here at the bottom is kind of ripe for a refactoring and a rethinking of how we organize our data so that we can actually more easily query it. And so one of the things that Dataview does well, actually, if we're looking at this particular format, is you notice this double colon right here. And the double colon here is a specific syntax that Obsidian Dataview implements that allows you to basically query fields within your file. So in other words, if we were to go inside of our dashboard and we switch this over to a table, and for now let's just say like status, for example, you'll see here that it actually can query specific parts of the file. So in this particular case with the creating dashboards here, I'll split the view here so that we can see this. You'll see now, let's see, here's episode 31. So if I come down here and change this to in progress, you'll see that this field is actually updating directly here inside of the status column, which is great. Now, the only thing with this, though, is that everything is sitting at the very bottom of the file, and that has created some complications for me in the past regarding how do I parse things, and more importantly, you just don't, like, things are not as organized as you'd like. And so one of the things that I'd like to be able to do is get better at creating a table that's a little bit more useful than just giant file names. I might want to be able to look at the different episodes. I want to look at things like what date it was actually recorded on, that kind of stuff. And so in this particular effort, what I think I'm going to do is let's refactor the template of the Obsidian Office Hours page template in an effort to actually make it easier for us to actually be able to query the right data when it comes to creating those dashboards. Okay, so knowing that, what I'm going to do here to make it easier, so what I've done is I just split the screen vertically. So my hotkey for that was Command D. And so this here is the same file, so just so you know. The difference here is I'm going to keep this stuff at the bottom here visible, and then the stuff here at the top, we'll kind of think through how this might actually look. And so these fields that you have here are actually an iteration of what I've been playing around with in terms of the Obsidian properties. And this is kind of like the standard, I think, which makes a lot of sense for most notes in my vault. So we have the ID, we have when it was created on, when it was modified. Granted, I would love to make this a little bit more programmatic in terms of making this thing updated, because it was updated later than this. Every node basically needs an aliases property, in my opinion, and then like an area for your tags. And then you can have anything that's related to it. So in other words, when you're taking a note, sometimes you don't necessarily put all your buzzwords and keywords, or more importantly, things that are anything that could be related to it, hence the name of the field. And so this allows me to then link to other things. So for example, I could be like, oh, this is related to Obsidian, for example. Now, the thing I've been playing around with, though, is that while this is nice from the sense that like you can put any type of note and you can link to it and it would be related to said note, this does mean we lose some of the metadata that I thought was a bit more, I thought at the time, an elegant solution to being descriptive about why you were linking to a specific thing. Because yes, as far as the topics go, this makes sense. It's related to Obsidian because, I mean, we're talking about dashboards with Obsidian. However, with things like, if I simply linked, for example, the 2023-9/13, just like this, I technically did link the date and now it's related, but we have no context as far as like, is it because it was recorded on this date, it was published on this date, like what exactly is going on? And so there's certainly a question to be, as I'm talking about this, whether or not we need to create an actual date time here as a way to track that additional data. Is that actually important as a way to do that? That is kind of worthy of discussion. I think the thing about this, though, I believe, so if we have this, I wonder, I won't play around this now because it'll require me to unbox a couple things. But one of the reasons I like linking to the daily note, like the periodic note directly, is then you have like a clear relationship between the two. And you can see everything that's happened that's basically related to that. Whereas if you're relying on, I guess to explain my thought here, a sort of implicit linking, this is a little bit trickier. So I think I'm still happy with the concept that I have here. And so maybe what I'm thinking here is actually, so what I want to do is create a new section of front matter that allows me to kind of define some specific things to streaming setups, because this is something I actually would use on any sort of stream. And so what if I did something like this? Okay, so I saw this inside of Reddit, and what it does, let's see if this actually works. Okay, that looks good. Okay, here we go. So I could have the series, Obsidian, oh, that's not what I want actually. I want to actually link it to Obsidian Office Hours series, just like that. Property type text, yep. Good, okay, cool. So what we've done here is we've created a fake divider essentially between the two different groups. And so if we look inside of here, okay, that's actually not too shabby. I like it. Okay, I'm going to keep it. So let me split this up again. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. So now that we have this, we have the ability to have a series, right, that's automatically attached, which is nice because now if I delete this property and we open up our OOH series and we actually tag this now in our table, we actually open up the series property. We do see, there we go, we see Obsidian Office Hours. And actually what I could do for this actually is I actually think I want an alias that's just Obsidian Office Hours because I think that's doesn't like it's technically tagged as a series, but I'd like to be able to do the alias instead, just like that. Okay, that should shorten things up a bit. So if we look now inside of episode 31, oh, this is interesting. The series is actually showing to be blank. I was not expecting that. Normally, the reason I say that is because if I come inside of here and I do related, like this, you'll see here that it's actually pulling the correct front matter here. So I'm curious why it's not pulling the correct series as a result. Let's see, is it because the field no, the field's gone. I've definitely eliminated it. So series should not exist anywhere else on the page. All right, let me delete this real quick to see if that changes anything. Oh, fascinating. Okay, so I guess that was my programmer instinct that kicked in. It looks like the line dashes that are serving as a separator is interfering with the ability to parse the front matter correctly, which is an interesting discovery, which is totally fine. It's just that one of my concerns originally with having everything in front matter is that your properties get pretty large over time, especially if you're trying to track a lot of stuff. And that's okay, but I think because of the minimal theme that I have, normally there is a way to toggle this. So if I toggle properties, there you go, I could hide it. But once again, one of the things I would like to do is toggle specific ones. So it'd be nice to show some of them. Show all properties. Oh, got it. That's what that means. Sorry, I got confused by that real quick. Show properties, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Show file I don't understand. Oh, I know what I did. Hold up. Fold properties. Toggle fold. There we go. Much better. Okay. Anyways. Okay, so we have here, yep. Down. Okay. We already have the type, tag content, no need for that. Okay, status. This is actually something that I'm really happy about because previously, one of the reasons I did status in progress like this is because you got this auto completion that was very consistent. However, now with the Obsidian properties, we actually do get a form of autocomplete. Now I will say, however, one of the downsides to this is that if this value does not exist on another node, it does disappear. And so there are some trade-offs certainly to this idea, given that if you have nothing in progress, you lose your kind of pre-formatted in progress text. And the other thing though, which is I guess I'll say it's a trade-off, is that within your Obsidian properties, there's only one type of field that can be tags. In other words, this type content, this tag area here. So even if I wanted to, right, one of the reasons I like tags is because you kind of kept it that way. I can't actually do like status in, like you see that it's actually auto-completing. Where if I were up in here, like you'll see that all my statuses are actually represented because tags exist everywhere. One could argue that theoretically that holds true now that I think about it. If the tag doesn't exist, it wouldn't show up here either. However, it's just easier to fake that, in other words. So I think at one point, I think what I did was, I was like Obsidian, I think it was like content task states. Because you can imagine, if I created a note like this, I'd be like, this is the workflow for content creation. And then I have like status idea, status, then backlog, then status in progress, status editing, and then status scheduled, and then status published. Right? As long as I have these 6 sitting in my node, it will live in perpetuity and anywhere can recall these particular tags as it sees fit. That said, I can't as easily fake this part without creating multiple nodes that have the status for each particular section, which is fine probably in the scheme of things. If I wanted to do this, I could, I guess I could create a folder of like placeholder nodes to retain certain data properties. But I do wish it was a little bit cleaner than that, but at least we have a way around this, right, at the end of the day. Okay, so we have in progress, and so one of the things that's nice about this, though, is that as a result of getting this plain text editing, you see that now we can actually have nicer display columns within our dashboards. Previously, it's not even working anymore. My Build with Ben series, okay, I did do this with this, but you'll see here, oh, it's showing up now. You'll see here that I try to come up with like different icons to represent what state the stuff was in. And in order to show that though, I had to do this crazy like JavaScript, breaking it up, checking the status, replacing the various icons. Like this is a lot of work, honestly. And not to mention a lot of work, it's a decent amount to maintain because the moment you want to fix something or it breaks, it's rather tricky and painful to deal with. So I like the fact that if we're taking a look at the Office Hours series and we're leveraging like, this is easy to understand, right? It's a table, it has some stuff, we're dealing with it, and more importantly, if we wanted to display a certain way, properties now make it pretty easy for us to do that, which is pretty freaking great. Okay. Knowing that now, we have the ability to set stuff as a status, and then, yep, I think that's that. I think, oh no, hold up. Switch that over, status in progress, yeah. And then I had the team for like who I was doing this for. So sure, for now, let's just call this team. Although this can be more than one team, so I'll do it like this. And then we'll do Ben codes then like that. Okay, so this should be mostly everything. The only thing now is, see, that is the other thing I think I struggle with a bit too with this new kind of status text format, is that now you can't just simply say exclude tags that have this. You have to theoretically say exclude files with a property of status that equal to this particular string, which is a little bit more friction given that we're working with plain text for the most part. I don't know how it would even begin to query that stuff. Tags do make it simpler in that regard, but then you can't just show the status of the tag. Oh, I see Dude Man in the chat. Yes, let's talk about the show all properties. I guess as a tangent actually is helpful, is you can actually see every single property that's ever existed inside of your Vault. And that is done either through this icon here that you see, which looks like kind of like a file box, or you can do the show all properties command within your command palette. So the nice thing about this is you can see I have a lot of different stuff inside of here. And there's actually a bit of refactoring to do because you can see here, even this example here, updated A, okay? So you can see here, yeah, this is, so I could update this to update at. And then once that's done, you'll see that updated, I believe, actually, let me sort by alphabetical because I lost it. Updated at, there you go. Now there's 2 nodes inside of here instead of that. The only thing that I think leaves me a little to be desired is it's similar to the tags issue, where once I know that things I want to start like collapsing them together, it's kind of complicated to make that happen. And by complicated, I mean it's manual at this point, unless you use some sort of text editor that can easily search and replace. And then maybe it gets a little bit better. But for me, it would be nice to be able to say like related and relationship, like these should be the same. Although what's interesting to me though is that why is there a relationship property if I haven't used it at all? That's actually kind of peculiar to me. Okay, it looks like relationship must be This is the built-in one. This is a built-in property that I did not create. I'll be honest, originally I did actually think about calling that property relationship, but it was a few characters longer than I liked. And I thought related was easy, like what topics it's related to, as opposed to like what topics there are relationships to with the note. So I think for now I'm going to keep it related because that works a little bit better in my brain in terms of that property. Because again, as you can see here, I was actually playing around with other, like what topic is it in or what yada yada. And so I will say I'm still debating between the granularity of how far to do the properties within the notes. Because once again, there does come a point unless we get a UI that allows us to maybe hide certain aspects of it, or more importantly, maybe even customize the emoji behind each one. And that's one thing I did like about the back matter strategy I created is because the icons made it easy to kind of visually distinguish different properties. Whereas this, it can be a lot going on, especially if letters start blurring together, that kind of stuff. It can be a decent amount to sort through. So we're here to talk about dashboard. We talked about defining different properties within your files that allow you to then query for those things. Let's see, I see something. I've been using topics and inline back mentions to make MOCs. Oh yeah, MOCs have they're called, I believe they're maps of concepts from Nick Milo. And so that really deserves its own session in and of itself. So we'll backlog that one. So I guess your MOCs then, I guess, allow you to then network your different ideas together, which are in a sense a form of dashboard, which is related to this. But since MOCs do kind of an explanation and they're a little bit different, I will table that one, but I appreciate you sharing that. Something I will think more about. I think in this particular session, I'm thinking of dashboards as a way to organize your notes and query them in an organized way that kind of gets you the information you need. And so knowing that, one of the things I actually wanted to take a look at in this session, because I actually don't quite have the answer for this just yet, is around the idea of grouping your notes. Because one of the things you can certainly do with your different statuses is you could create individual queries for the different statuses that you have. The only problem with that, though, is that you end up with this situation where, so actually let me just remove this part because I want to make sure we are consistent for now with the rest of the data. So status in progress like that. Okay, now we're good. So let me do some cleanup while we're talking here. Okay, so if I want to create a dashboard that shows me all the different properties and how they're grouped, right? Like show me all the backlog together, show me all the in progress together. One of the things that Dataview has is this group by. So if I do group by status, for example, you would hope that it would show all the things, but that doesn't seem to be quite how it works because now we have to actually need to, I think it was like the file.name, for example, and even that did not work. Okay, this is where I do think we need to do a little digging because I'd like to be able to see all the different files within the group. Because right now it says group by status, but it doesn't tell me much beyond that. And I always found that a little bit counterintuitive to how I thought it would work. So you know what? If the top post is, table without ID, brand as brand, table without brand yet, table rows.open period, rows.amount. Yeah, I think it's this rows things that's throwing me off. Okay, hang on. We're gonna figure this out together on this stream. Okay, so group by, we do need, nope, that's not what I wanted at all. I need the group by query language reference, query, group, yeah, grouping. So only group by the keys, yep, output, game, knowledge, MOCs, rows.file.link. This is probably the magic. Okay, rows.file.link. Okay, this looks much better now. Not perfect, but we do get at least a sense of what's in queue, what's moving forward, and what's not, which is pretty nice. So row file.link as file, so that should give a better title here. What's interesting here is that the count here is done via, it looks like the number of statuses that do exist. Yeah, is there anything else we need to know? Rows file link. Yep. List without ID. Yep, we can talk about that later. Can be handy if you want to output computer properties. 3 types of games, 3 pages, group by type. Oh, it's interesting. You can actually then modify the output from Dataview to be very specific. So if I wanted something, so let's just call this like full archive by status, for example. If I wanted a straight up like a metric dashboard, it looks like what we can do instead is if we do list from type content, where series is equal to Obsidian Office Hours series, like that. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff, which is good, but we can do without ID, and then we can say length of rows, it seems. Hold up. Oh, I screwed up. Where am I? Okay. Without ID, length of rows. Yep. Length of rows plus key. Does that even work? Nope. No implementation for number plus. All right, how about this? That didn't tell me anything. List without ID, group by, oh, sorry, what am I grouping by? Sorry, hold up. Group by status. 1211, okay. And then key. Nope, did not like key. How did it do that? Length row, pages of type, okay, plus status of type plus key. Oh, okay, that looks better. Okay, so interesting. It's almost like by adding a string in new to actually concatenate them rather than add them manually. Okay, cool. So you can see status of type, status published, 6. Okay, that's super useful as a technique because now you no longer have to look at like a giant table, do the calculations themselves. You could actually just say what it is. And so that is pretty cool. I like this a lot. Gonna need to make sure this tip gets passed on in its own video. So there'll be time where you have notes that you want to sort by its date, its periodic date. So in other words, you can imagine if we had something like, let me do writing session on 2023, 0901, just like this. And then you can imagine now if we had a date for when it like happened. So this one will be like occurred on, and this way we'll actually say it was on, just like this. It was on September 1st. So let me copy this now, and then we're gonna do another writing session on, let's make this one on August 1st, right? And then here, get August 1st, which is great. And then if you're wondering, there's a little bit of a bug right now with the refresh, so that's why that did not show up immediately. And so, okay, so we have these two things, and to make them easy to query right now, we'll just call them writing sessions, and that will be how they're related. Writing sessions, okay. So if we were creating like a writing session dashboard, for example, you're probably going to want to be able to be like, okay, we want to, let's see, a table, and I want to see the, what did I write? Occurred on, that's right. Oh no, I just crashed Obsidian. Oh, we good? Okay, woo, that was close. Occurred on, I should have finished this. This is a dangerous thing about Dataview though. If you don't finish the query and you're not careful, it will query everything and things could absolutely break. So we want to do everything that has writing sessions attached to it. And then I think that's actually it. Oh. List. How am I not querying? It's related to writing sessions. Okay. SLRVB, thank you for that. Yep, list before anything else. Is that happen at the beginning? Or the limit 10? No, hang on. I think it's at the bottom, like this. Okay, however, I'm a little surprised though that the front matter did not actually make this related, which I'm actually a bit surprised by. It's related here in the linked mentions, but why? Oh, now it suddenly appears. Is that because writing session did not exist? Anyways, that's what I'm going to assume. Actually, we can test that theory real quick. If writing sessions is here and we delete set file, this. Okay, so it looks like you can't link to a node that doesn't quite exist yet. That's interesting. That's good to know. Okay, so that's fine. Should be zone line on the bottom. Okay, cool. Yes, my instinct was spot on with that. Good to know. All right, so we have a list. We have writing sessions, but what you want to be able to see here is the date that it occurred on, right? So here it's occurred on this date. Now the thing is that if you have these notes like this, where you're basically saying like the thing you're doing and then like the date, it's kind of repetitive to just kind of see this all the way down. And then on the right-hand side, you're like, geez, like then I have to see like all the dates. And more importantly, these link out to a very specific daily note. So they're not quite the same thing. And so on your dashboard, you probably want the ability, at least I did, to be able to just see like the dates that happened and then link to the correct file. Because this here is redundant data from like especially like a dashboard perspective. And so what I found that you can end up doing actually, so let's see, without, okay. So table without ID, and then what we can do is we can just do the occurred on date. And so what you see here now is we've hidden the redundant definition of the file name along with the date, and we have this now, but as we can see here, this links out directly to my actual daily notes. And so what we want to do instead, if I remember this correctly, and I might have to look this up, is you can there's a link helper inside of it where I believe we can do file.link. I did this a second ago. Hold up. Let me yeah, okay, that did not work. Hang on a second. It was link the path. Yes, but the path is something I want to get. So we have the ability to link something. Okay, so actually, for example, to show that this works, let's just link to Google. Exception, no implementation of link found. That's silly. No, it does exist. Hang on. Link, path, embed link to this, yep. Link to a page name, hello, link to the path and what's displayed. Yes, this should work. Oh, is it because it's an external URL? Is that why? Again, let me just show that this works for a second. Oh, it's interesting. It did not like using the dynamic property here. Occurred on. No, that's actually, checking this real quick. I mistyped that, occurred on. Yeah, it can't extract it. I wonder if this is one of those need to convert to string bit. Yep, okay, yeah, I forgot. I have the snippet in here somewhere. So this is actually the snippet that I was looking for, which this is one of the reasons why, again, I plan to write a blog post to kind of dedicate to explaining this. But the key thing here is that when you're linking something, you want to link the file.link to whatever the property is. And then more importantly, you have to stringify the property itself. And so it's kind of interesting that it's doing this because I've had it work before. But that's fine. Let me do this real quick. There we go. I think that I end up doing it. Yep, I did. Ha! Win. So this technique requires 3 different pieces to understand, which is not the most intuitive based on the docs, and you kind of have to piece it together. Hence why this is a pattern I'd love to share with more people. Basically, when you're trying to remove the first part, you need this without ID piece, and whether it's a list or a table, whatever you decide. But more importantly, whichever you decide you want to be the designated link, you need this particular function, the link, and then this property, file.link. This will link to the original query that you're actually getting the thing with. And then this is where you can actually choose the property that you want to actually like replace. So in this particular instance, you'll notice that file, like the file.name, actually does correlate to the literal file name of like the date that it happened on. The nice thing about this though, which is actually pretty cool, is that you can actually access the aliases of those dates. And so in my particular case, whoop, did not like that. Date.aliases, oh, sorry, not that name. Like that. Yep, cool. So what do I mean by that? So to show you what I mean, let me create a new one. December 20th, 2024, create it, and then let me modify this to a daily note page template. Oh, silly me. Hold on, delete current file. New note 2024 12/20, create that. Okay, I have this daily note, basically alias, that allows me to create the different variations of a periodic note because frankly, like this is fine and it's very good programmatically speaking, but kind of hard to read, especially over time. It's something you just want like the human readable version. And so the fact that I can immediately say it's just December 20th, the 20th with the 2024, or more importantly, I want to actually have the day of the week that it's like having that automatically calculated. That's a pattern I'm happy to show later on. Basically, there's a templater that allows you to specify date formats, but I'm happy to share that. But anyways, what you can do, what's cool about this is, so let me do this as like session date. So let me copy this so you actually see both at the same time. That's fine, I'll just keep it as JavaScript. Okay, cool. So you see here that we created this column called session date, and then we're able to access the occurred on date, which is a periodic note technically, and we've replaced the link with the actual file link of where we want it to go, because this is when the things happen, right? We wrote on September 1st, we wrote on August 1st, and then from there, you might be like, oh, well, I want the ability to sort these things, but that's totally fine. We can basically say we can sort by occurred on, just like that. And when we do that, there we go. You'll see that it's actually now sorting correctly in terms of like the first one being August, then September, and then if we wanted to switch it, it would be descending, and then it would reverse chronological order that. And so this is something I found really helpful in terms of cleaning up my dashboards. And so I didn't always have this initial column along with all this other stuff. And I could be more specific regarding like, I just want to know what date I did this session on. Maybe I want to know it, and then you can clean it up. For Obsidian Office Hours, maybe I want to know the topic, and then the topic, with the session, and then basically the world's your oyster as far as that goes. All right. So for today, we kind of went into a couple of different things, but the main topic overall, we had to talk about dashboards and how you could use Dataview to create different dashboards. And we talked about a couple of different techniques as far as how you can do that regarding using your tables to have different properties and then combining with the new Obsidian properties that's been released to figure out how you can define the right schema to organize and label your notes so that later on you can query them in a way that makes the most sense to you. Whether you're doing this for, the number of scenarios this could be useful for are basically infinite to whatever you want it to be. If you're someone who's studying, you can organize like the notes you're taking, maybe the last time it was modified. And so over time, I think what I want to do is create a resource for common scenarios that people probably want to query data for. And then, because while the syntax in Dataview, while it's more straightforward than writing a bunch of JavaScript, I know that at times you just want something to work. And so I'll hopefully try to create a resource that makes it easier for people to figure out, like, I just want to create a table that does this, and it kind of just does that for you. And so it's something I'll be thinking about doing for you all at some point. But otherwise, the other main tip as well that I was happy to finally get to share with you all is the ability to hide the original like file name and actually manipulate it to something that's actually useful to you so that your brain doesn't have to deal with the clutter of your dashboard having extra data in there that it doesn't actually need. Anyhow, with that, I hope that this was useful for y'all. And like I said, if you ever have any questions or have things that you want to see me cover here on Obsidian Office Hours, be sure to leave a comment below. Appreciate y'all for hanging out, and I guess I will catch you all actually, I'll catch you all next week for those attending live. So again, we're going to start doing Wednesdays. I'm going to get the site updated so you can see the schedule now going forward. But I'll be writing Wednesdays, so Obsidian Office Hours will be on Wednesdays going forward. So that said, once again, thanks everyone for hanging out. It's been an absolute blast, and I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.